Welcome, IndyCar fans, to a special edition of the IndyCar Report with Elijah Poe, here to do a recap of qualifying for the Grand Prix of Alabama and then do a bit of a preview of the race. We also did a full preview of the race before we knew the qualifying results on Thursday on the IndyCar Report. Please go check that out. And of course, I'm joined by Elijah Poe here to recap the qualifying and talk about the race. And no surprise, Elijah, and it wasn't particularly close, Alex Palou, a pretty much even odds favorite coming into the race, took the pole fairly comfortably over David Malukas.
Not really shocking. He's been so good around Barber Motorsports Park here these last couple of years. It's kind of crazy with how much he's been front running this year and in the top 5 drivers. That's actually his first pole of the season in the 4th race, but nonetheless, looked like just the car of the class today, no doubt.
Yeah. Anytime there's a road course, Elijah, he's the favorite going in.
There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's looked so stellar on pretty much every road course IndyCar's been on, and street courses as well, even though Andretti's definitely had the upper hand just on that car package. But Alex Palou is doing Alex Palou things, and it's no real shocker he took pole. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out just because he hasn't come from pole this season. But once he's got the lead in some of these races, he tends to just slowly drift away lap after lap, just eating up time. And it'll be interesting to see if he can do that tomorrow at Barber with David Malukas, Graham Rahal, and Marcus Armstrong on his tail.
The front row, not a big surprise. The rest of the qualifying results were pretty interesting, Elijah. Row 2, Graham Rahal with his best qualifying performance in a long time. Well, maybe last year at Indy. But other than that, a great performance for him next to Marcus Armstrong on row 2.
I think it's a big day for Graham, especially RRL. We talked about them earlier this week saying they needed a good result, and what a result they put in with being on row 2 and 3rd is huge for that team and big for Graham's season in general to kind of kick this season off. Had a few shaky races in races 1 through 3, but race 4 here, we're not really that deep into the season. So if you want to kind of turn your season around here, you very well could. And what a good result for him. And Marcus Armstrong, at this point, I'm just not surprised. He's shown time and time again that he is an incredible talent with that Meyer-Shank Racing team. And I'm not surprised he's up there.
And Kirkwood on the inside of row 3, his best qualifying performance of the year, actually, despite him being in the lead in the championship. And then outside of row 3 is Romain Grosjean, which means we had in our Fast 6, Meyer-Shank, Rahal, and Dale Coyne.
Yeah, I love it. Romain Grosjean actually set the track record at Barber for his pole speed, I think it was a couple years ago, maybe his first year in IndyCar. So no surprise there. He's been known to be really quick on the road and street circuits. And I like seeing Dale Coyne up in the 3rd row there competing. I think in general, you talk about Dale Coyne, they don't have the funding these other teams do, but man, they really do prove themselves week in and week out.
And in row 4, it's Santino Ferrucci and Marcus Ericsson. Good performances from them. Row 5, Joseph Newgarden and Christian Lundgaard, 2 of the favorites coming into the race. Row 6, Alexander Rossi and Pato O'Ward. O'Ward surprisingly on row 6. Row 7, Scott Dixon, who had an incident we'll talk about coming up here in a second, shares a row with Scott McLaughlin, who also did. Row 8, Nolan Siegel and Rinus VeeKay. Row 9 is Christian Rasmussen and Felix Rosenqvist. Row 10 is Kiffin Simpson and Mick Schumacher, which we definitely need to talk about Mick Schumacher's weekend. Row 11, Caio Collet and Louis Foster. Row 12, Will Power, who also had an accident, Stingray Robb. And row 13, Dennis Hauger. A bit of a tumultuous weekend, Elijah.
Talked about it earlier in the week, but what I really like about Barber is it rewards the drivers who are really on a pinpoint accuracy, and it hurts those who aren't. And you look at those who aren't, like Will Power, Scott Dixon, and Scott McLaughlin, who were just pushing and got just a little bit of a tire on the grass, and that grass will penalize you. So it's such a great course in that the fact where it really rewards, but it can also take away very, very quickly. And I think we saw that play out today, which is how many crashes there were.
Will Power, not of his own, I believe. His brakes went out. He went to turn in and just went straight. So he's got a lot of bad luck.
He has. But the thing is, we know that Andretti car is pretty well powered, so I'll be interested to see how he can start in the 12th row and maybe scrounge up some points there. I wouldn't be super shocked to see him get in the top 15. I think the top 10 is possible if he's able to pull it off.
And then Graham Rahal, want to go back to that because the Rahal Letterman Lanigan team was a lot faster this weekend. And the reason we thought coming into qualifying was Mick Schumacher, who was one of the fastest in both practice sessions and thought he was going to have a great day today, and he didn't.
That's a shame. He was in a really hard qualifying group as well, but that's just the way things are in IndyCar. You're not always going to get the best luck on whether you're qualifying that first round or second round, and just didn't put together a good enough lap to move on. But starting in 20th, it's definitely going to be a big point tomorrow to watch where he ends up, because he definitely needs to get inside the top 15, and he really honestly needs to get into the top 10 because his season has just been momentumless. He really hasn't been seen much on TV, hasn't been really much of a talking point ever, which is a shame because I think RLL and IndyCar as a whole kind of needs him to be a big factor in this series.
Yeah, and they're coming up to Indy in May, and that first race is one that the Rahal team has been very good. So if he can have a good weekend this weekend, and I'm too, that he's going to be the one I'm watching tomorrow from the start. I think he's going to make up a lot of positions. I think he's going to have a lot of fun back there, and I expect him to make a charge toward the front. But there are a lot of good drivers in the back, Elijah. Who are you expecting to come from the back?
I have to go to Scott McLaughlin, who's been fast all weekend, just had an incident there in practice and actually qualified 14th on a backup car, which I really don't think is all that bad. So I think he's definitely going to be somebody to watch because he's been known time and again to be very, very fast at Barber.
All right, so I'm going to ask you your pick to win, but how about your pick to finish second?
I kind of like David Malukas to finish second. I really do. I think he's had some good results this year. I don't think he's going to knock off a win this year unless he maybe sends a ridiculous dive on Alex Palou in the opening laps. But I think he's a consistent enough driver, and I think he's got the talent to finish where he starts.
Oh, well, then we know who your top two are. Let's name your podium.
Podium, I'm going to have to go first for Alex Palou. I think when you give him the opportunity to start on pole, I can't think of many times where he squandered that lead. I do like David Malukas to finish in second, and I like Kyle Kirkwood to come from fifth and finish up on third just to continue to challenge Palou this year for the Drivers' Championship.
I really think we're going to see Graham Rahal on the podium. I really hope so. I think he's got the equipment to do it, and I think he's
It'd be good for the sport.
Yeah, and I really like him. I've always liked him. I've started to question his talent a little bit, but we'll see. He's got a nice car, and again, they're going to have a track coming up that's one of their best, and it's my favorite team. I'd really like to see them perform well.
I don't disagree, and I'd honestly be remiss shouting out Santino Ferrucci with the 7th place qualifying start. That team has been in a little bit of hurting in these first 3 races, and that's a pretty strong result for that team that desperately needs one.
All right, last thing, Elijah, before we go, I mentioned Mick Schumacher as my story to watch going into the race. He's going to be the driver I'm watching coming from 20th position. What's a storyline or two that you have going in for the race tomorrow that you want listeners to pay attention to?
I'm definitely going to be watching where Pato ends up down in 12th. If he looks to really continue this championship battle and kind of scrounge up with Palou and Kirkwood, I think he's going to need a pretty good finishing day to keep up with those guys as the season kind of takes off. And I also think where Santino ends is really big for AJ Foyt Racing. If he's able just to even stay in 7th, maybe get a top 5, or even just finish in the top 10, I think that's a good day for him.
Elijah Poe, thank you so much for your time, and Elijah will be back after the race on Sunday to recap and react to that one, and I'm sure we'll have others with us. Elijah, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.